right now at 6.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
We're marking 10 years since 49 people were killed during a shooting at the Pulse nightclub.
It was like chaos, man, really chaos.
Boom, 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 boom. By the third time, that's when everybody knew, okay, this ain't no joke.
I was helping somebody because he was laying down. I wasn't sure if he was dead or alive.
And a decade later,
there's not a day that I don't think about them, and there's not a day that we all don't think about them.
we honor the victims, we lift their families, we support the survivors. We're live outside the former Pulse nightclub site as Orlando prepares to reflect on all that has changed.
From the initial investigation,
this was an act of violence born out of hate that inflicted terror on an entire community.
To the difficult path to a permanent memorial.
Ask the One Pulse Foundation, what have you been doing for 7 years?
I know one thing, we're going to buy the property and we're going to have control of the property.
Acknowledge the fact that the majority of people that died that night spoke Spanish, and all of them were united under Spanish-speaking music.
Plus, the continued efforts to make sure the legacy of the victims is never lost.
Remembering Pulse 10 years later, right now on Sunrise.
WESH 2 News Sunrise starts now.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Alvarez, live outside the site of the former Pulse nightclub. Today marks 10 years since 49 people were killed here and 53 others hurt. Lives changed forever when a gunman entered the nightclub in the early morning hours of June 12, 2016. We have team coverage for you this morning with Bob Hazen, Jason Guy, Meredith McDonough as we look back on the hurt and the healing of the last 10 years and the ongoing efforts to build a permanent Pulse memorial here at this site in honor of those victims. We start this morning with a look back on how it all started 10 years ago. Just after 2 a.m., as the Pulse nightclub began to wind down its Noche Latina, Latin night, a man with an automatic weapon opened fire on the packed dance floor. There were as many as 300 people inside and around the club. Those that could ran out the main door and doors to an enclosed patio. Some ran to the back of the club into bathrooms. There was only one off-duty police officer working as security. He called for backup as the shooting began. But dozens of people were already shot, and the shooter was deep into the nightclub at this point. He shot people hiding in those bathrooms. He even called 911 himself. And he stayed in the club, threatening to set off bombs until the Orange County SWAT team breached the back wall of Pulse hours later, just after 5 a.m. And that is when officers confronted the shooter and killed him in a shootout. Now, dozens of people came out in the middle of the night, overnight, to remember the 49 lives lost that night during all that chaos and horror. WESH 2's Bob Hazen was here for that early morning ceremony. It was very emotional, Bob. They read off the names of all of those 49 angels.
Yeah, Nancy, as you said, the shooting here started at 2:02 in the morning 10 years ago, and that is the exact time when they started reciting those names of the people who were lost 10 years ago.
Bianca Deidre Drayton, Leroy Valentin Fernandez.
And the sidewalk outside the Pulse site was crowded. This was the first time they've had this ceremony since the actual building was demolished and the site fenced off. The organizers say that the goal here was to lift up the names of the people who lost their lives. Some shared stories about their loved ones. The group Angel Action Wings, which formed after the attack to shield people from protesters at the victims' funerals, was here too, as they are every year. And they were joined by some victims' family members and survivors, all of them here to remember.
It's been a roller coaster. You know, some days are cool, some days are like, and then some days are like, did it really happen? Like, you know, it's never changed.
This is Chris Broadman. He was the first survivor of the Pulse tragedy to pass. He survived that night, but died 3 months later of a brain aneurysm from the stress and from the horror of being here. But he saved 2 lives that night by pushing 2 strangers over the back fence himself before getting out himself. So he was a hero, and we love and miss him every day. And
Jim McDermott there is part of the Angel Action Wings. At one point this morning, they stood in the crosswalk in front of Pulse. It's colored back in with chalk today after months of controversy when the state wiped out the rainbow colors. A pastor said if it were possible to have a rainbow at 2 o'clock in the morning, she bets there would have been one in the sky this morning. And the message from everyone out here we talked to was unity and remembering and honoring the lives of those who were lost. Nancy, back to you.
All right, Bob, I think we'll all be looking for rainbows this afternoon, that's for sure. We usually see them every year on this day. Well, June 12, 2016 was Noche Latina, Latin night at Pulse. Around 90% of the people who gathered here were Hispanic, all of them dancing to music like salsa, reggaeton, and bachata. And last night, the culture was on full display at a remembrance ceremony at the Spirit of Joy Church in Orlando. So what you're looking at here is what's called a baquine. It's a traditional Afro-Caribbean ritual held for someone who has died. It's very common in places like Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and it is simply a joyful celebration of life. We spoke to Nancy Rosado, the founder of Del Ambiente, the group hosting the ceremony, about what it meant to remember the 49 this way.
Out of respect for what they set out to do that night, which to have a good time and laugh and just enjoy life. And we're going to enjoy life today in their name. We're going to continue what they started.
And former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was also in attendance. She survived an assassination attempt in her home state of Arizona in 2011 and became an advocate against gun violence. She spent time with the families last night and shared this message.
American needs all of us to speak out, even when you have to fight upon the words. I'm also in a second fight, the fight to stop gun violence.
I was lucky to spend some time with Gabby Giffords as well. She is such an inspiration, and I'll tell you, I think she hugged everyone in that room last night, taking the time to speak to family members of the victims and to survivors and really provide so much inspiration that I think is much needed around this time of the year every year. She's just an extraordinary person. Well, today there will be an official remembrance ceremony at First United Methodist Church in Orlando. That ceremony will be this evening. It will feature musical performances, including by the Orlando Gay Chorus. The Orlando Gay Chorus, a very, very special part of Pulse remembrance ceremonies every year. And at the end, a candlelight ceremony where the names of the 49 victims will be read. And as for the families, we know that decade or not, the grief really hasn't lessened with time. For Lali Santiago, for example, the last 10 years have revolved around a promise that she made to her cousin Dani to always keep his story alive. Lali was the one who convinced Dani to move from Puerto Rico to Orlando, where he thrived and he met the love of his life, Jean. They met at Pulse and they died at Pulse.
They were holding hands and then they weren't, and then Jean turned around and didn't see Dani, and he went back in, and Dani was already there trying to, and then he held Jean to kind of protect him, so they died together.
It's one of many heart-wrenching stories to come out of that night 10 years ago. Ahead in our next half hour, we're going to be remembering much more of the last 10 years and keeping the focus on those 49 that we lost, and we will have much more in the effort it has taken so far to get a permanent memorial for them built, as well as how the location of the nightclub here on Orange Avenue played a part into how so many lives were saved that night. So much more to come this morning as we remember what happened at Pulse 10 years ago that really changed Orlando in so many ways. For now, we want to send things back to the studio. Mayor and Jason, back to you guys.
Nancy, thank you. And just always so moving to see how the families are keeping the memory alive of their loved ones and just the importance of that going forward. And I think just, you know, that overall theme of when all of this happened and afterwards, the aftermath of the Orlando Strong and Orlando United.
Yeah, this community really came together. We wrapped arms around each other. We've heard so many stories about the things people did to hear about these two who were in love and there at Pulse nightclub died and embracing each other. I mean, it's a little overwhelming. And to think back 10 years ago on June 12th, Mayor, you were at this desk, I was at this desk. We were telling this news as it was unfolding to our community, and it changed Central Florida forever.
The day you'll never forget.